Something is Killing the Children is a comic book series. This will be a sort of review. I got the first 3 volumes that I finished here, so we'll take out these 3 and then we'll see about the rest. But this is a horror comic book series written by James Tynion IV. Now, I've seen his work in Batman Eternal. I read the first volume only, and he's got his hands in other stuff like that, but I wanted to check out his comic book series. This is a horror story about a small town, and something is killing the children, and the lone survivor is being ostracized because he says he did it, and someone shows up in town, a young blonde woman with huge bags under her eyes named Erica. Erica Slaughter is from the House of Slaughter, part of an organization that hunts monsters, and she's there to kill the creature that is killing children. And of course, she's very flippant. She has to keep a secret. So whenever she goes somewhere, people start asking questions. There's survivors who had missing siblings, children, and they get suspicious. There's law enforcement. So the first 3 volumes is basically one story. It's one arc. It's the introduction of the concept of her showing up and killing, but she doesn't follow the rules, and it ends up exacerbating the situation into more deadly stuff. More children get killed, bigger problems, more characters, and then a little bit of world building. So to be honest, the monster hunting angle of this is pretty boring. It's just her showing up with a knife and slashing at things. It's the organization that's more cool and more juicy, and I think the writer knows that. He leans that into more of that in the second and third volume. It's called the House of St. George, and has to do with the mythology of the knight who fought the dragon, and the organization does the same thing where they can trap the spirit of a monster into a stuffed animal, and is a sort of guide to hunt more creatures. So the creature that in question is basically like a large monster thing that adults can't see but children can, but only if they believe in monsters, and they can also go intangible. So like, it's just really, you know, vague at first, and this is the first 3 volumes, but you know, the art's fine, nothing wrong with that. It's violent, but I just feel like the story is a little bit too gruesome, but not in a like a sickening way, more of a flippant way, in the sense that, like, you know, obviously killing children is terrible, but they like write it, oh, 17 kids are dead, you know, 5 more, and they just like keep bringing up the body count off screen. And it just feels a little bit like weak emotionally. Like, obviously 17 missing children would be awful, but like he doesn't really take the time to like paint a picture and make you feel emotion. It's just the equivalent of someone showing up and saying they got 5 more, you know, and that's it. And then, you know, there's some characters, they're kind of annoying, but she's also annoying too, the main character, because she just won't tell them what's going on, to the point where they, like, you know, try to arrest her and stuff. And they throw in some world building with rituals and stuff, and that's how they can trap the monsters or kill them and stuff. But it's okay as a series. It's a horror series. It's not that scary, you know, because they don't really flesh out the whole children are dead thing. It's just sort of like mentioned offhand, and the characters' development's not really developed fully. But I started volume 4, and it's a prequel sort of story about Erica as a child going to the organization. So obviously they're going, I think I have the first 7 volumes from the library, so I can go as far as that, but it's probably still going. Overall, it's worth checking out if you're into like Stephen King kind of story or macabre stuff, but it's just prepared for a lot of you know, gruesome children being ripped apart, but like excessively, almost edgelord kind of like vibes. But overall, it's interesting, and that's my thoughts on the first 3 volumes. Something is Killing the Children Volume 4 is the prequel volume, in which we get the birth of Erica Slaughter. So we're getting her origin, what killed her family, how she got inducted into the Order of St. George, and basically her origin story, coming of age, sort of how she meets her loved ones and the people that she would call her family. This one is pretty decent. You know, it's kind of going for like a berserk kind of thing, where you give the backstory later. You start with the badass and you sort of introduce small things later. They do mention a major story point that is not given, and it's probably something you have to wait for in a future volume, so that's pretty interesting. But overall, it's a pretty strong volume, because you get to see the origin and you know, more world building, all the different kinds of sects in the sort of the groups inside of the Order of St. George. So there's lots of world building in there, lots of integral stuff. I felt that the organization's more interesting than the monster hunting, to be honest. So this is a massive improvement. I felt the pace was a little bit slow for the first 3 volumes, so that's where volume 4 happens. And now the next volumes are 5, 6, and 7. These ones goes for about 3 trade paperbacks per arc. So I would call this the New Mexico arc, because volume 5 essentially starts with a new creature, a new location, a new set of a small town characters and all that stuff, and we'll introduce them. They're pretty interesting. They're kind of like generic. You got your cop, you got your main girl who sort of introduces everything. It just starts with that immediately. And then, of course, the series keeps doing the thing where it sort of ends a volume on a cliffhanger, kind of getting annoying. They do introduce a new villain, though, a really interesting lady from the House of Cutter. So she's pretty messed up and creepy. That's the real horror. I like the horror elements of the stories. And then volume 6 is just a continuation of sorts. We're getting more... They kind of slow things down a little bit, and because there's 2 threats. There's the Cutter Woman, and then there's a monster of the arc of sorts, and some backstory for the side characters a little bit. A little bit mopey, but it develops quite nicely, and then it sort of ends into another cliffhanger. And then, of course, Volume 7 gives us the sort of finale of that arc. So even though Volume 8, I'm waiting for the library, I don't think I'll continue yet. I'll wait until Volumes 9 and 10 are also readily available. So I can read all 3 in one go, because the next storyline will probably be 3 volumes. So those are my thoughts on Something is Killing the Children's Volume 1 to 7 total. Pretty interesting series, a little bit gruesome, but it's a fun, action-packed horror series that's original, and definitely worth checking out if you're into that. So that's my thoughts on James Tynion IV's Something is Killing the Children.